Rugged, lightweight, comfortable, handcrafted rockin' leather boots. Made to work all day and be out all night. RockinLeather.com. Introducing the Rixie Generation 2 Dog Stand. Lightweight, collapsible, and engineered for versatility. This stand is built with a laser-cut powder-coated steel frame, tempera aluminum legs, and a durable Duramesh fabric. Weighing just under 8 pounds, it's effortless to carry and set up. With a working load limit of 120 pounds, it attaches to nearly any tree. Available now at RixieOutdoors.com.
Winter Productions, content creation company that is here to tell your story, whether it's about the love of your life or capturing the chance of a lifetime. We are here to tell your story.
Roll up to the club in my 1964 caddy straight ready to start. At a quarter to one, just a looking for
Man,
fun.
you really gotta sell this place.
Yeah, that's very dead cut.
Yeah. Let's go kill some ducks.
Take another shot, get lit on me, baby. Hurry. It's a quarter to
Let's go. Yeah. I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it. Fuse like a magnet, lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same. Cause that's what it takes.
It's time to talk dog vest. Recoil Outdoors dog vest. We use this dog vest all season long. It's stood up to the test. Let's talk some features about it. This dog vest is built with industrial grade Velcro for a snug fit around the neck, unlike any competitors. This vest comes with dual rear straps for a snug fit around the waist. This vest allows for a tucked away handle for the timber or an open handle for open water. This vest also comes with covered edges around the neoprene to prevent chafing. Recoil vest also comes with a Cador chest strip that runs the length of the vest to prevent punctures and cuts. This vest comes in 6 different sizes, tailored to fit the smallest boykin to the biggest lab. Recoil Outdoors. the only fully adjustable one-piece dog vest on the market. Check them out online.
Welcome back to another episode of Life Between the Vice, brought to you by Rockin' Leather, Rixie Outdoors, Hunt Proof, Bluebird Waterfowl, 30 Duck Coffee, Winter Productions, and Recoil Outdoors. Now let's get it started. What's going on? Let me get my audio fixed. Okay, I have been attempting to get all this figured out for the past hour. And I think we got it figured out. We got an awesome guest tonight. We're gonna hop right over to. We're talking media tonight, and we're talking media in the rodeo world. So that's kind of my favorite area that I don't really get to talk about very much. Doing a hunting podcast, but I had this pretty cool experience where I got introduced to some guys, and kind of hasn't worked out yet. But we're gonna join Isaac here in just a second. I need to text him the link and hope that Google Meet decides it's gonna do the right thing. But we got the Gadwall. We're drinking it tonight, and we're about out. But shout out to Gadwall. They hooked me up. Got some more coming tomorrow, actually, I think. So, yeah, well, I just got to check one thing. Yep, I'm on the right microphone there. I've got to, feed a weird microphone for him to hear me, so we'll see when he jumps in here. And we'll get ready to go. Oh, I'm going to have to approve his joining or not admit. How's it going, man? Not too bad. Let me turn you up a little bit, and you're sideways on my screen.
Oh, no problem. Let's see if we can fix that.
Technology has drove me crazy tonight. Yeah. I'm finally getting a software figured out on this side.
Oh, for the Google Meets?
Yeah. Well, I got rid of OBS, that trash software, and went with a newer version of it.
Yeah, OBS is pretty good. I mean, there's for being free, I think.
Yeah, it is. I found a version that's called Prism, and it's pretty well just like OBS. It uses all OBS's plugins, but it's a cleaner version. It's they took and updated some stuff.
Yeah, I use Vmix for everything digital, and let me tell you, I love it. Works super good.
Yeah, it's definitely very different. All this stuff is, but you can hear me okay and everything on your side.
Yeah, I can hear you great. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, it's perfect. Hey, man.
Sweet.
Well, I've been excited for this podcast because we've been trying to do it for a while now, and my crazy life has been crazy, and my wife is fighting with a 3-year-old right now, a 2-year-old right now, trying to put him to sleep. I keep calling him 3 because he acts like he's older. But so if you see a little kid come running by screaming, that is what's going on, everyone.
It's the two-year-old terrible twos, as they call it, right?
Man, it is, dude. This kid is. If you let him right now, he would jump on any bull, anything. You let him have his hand on, he's gonna give me a heart attack probably. So, yeah.
Kids are super fun though. I gotta say, one of my friends, she is a 2-year-old, and I'm helping her put remodel one of her rooms for him. You know, he's getting a big boy bed. They're having another kid, so they're kind of keeping their nursery, remodeling this other room. And gosh, I'm surprised how smart they are, right? Because he's in there, he's working with me. He's like, oh, toss me the hammer. I want to use it, and I want to help bust apart drywall and stuff. And
It's scary how smart they are and how much they pick up from you, and you don't even know it. I get in trouble a little bit for my language at time around, and I'm like, they didn't hear me. And sure enough, the other day, apparently the little one spilled water on himself in the car, and I don't blame him. It was cold water, and he just kept saying, damn it, all the way down the road. And I find it funny. You're going to find it everyone's going to find it funny other than his mother.
right.
But, yeah, man, let's kind of jump into this one because I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't quite know where you're located currently. We're going to get into that. Kind of Why don't we tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of get into what you do and kind of your job.
Well, I can tell you there's a lot of no. So, what sort of things do you want to start with?
Hold on a sec. I lost your audio for 1 second.
Got it or no?
Oh, there it is. There it came back.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I said there's definitely a lot of no. So, where do you want to start?
All right. Let's just start with Let's start with what your job is, like what you technically do right now.
Okay, so what I technically do right now is like if you talk about the production world, you have, from my understanding, I didn't come from a production background. Okay, I'm a I'm as close to an old farm boy as you'd get at this point. I don't think any of those exist anymore at my age, but um, that's the background I have, and I got kind of brought into this, and so I learned from people that have gone to college for this, gone to school for this, or been in the industry for a long time. And to my understanding, you have producers, directors, technical directors, replay people, you have people that run camera, you have camera assistants, you have production assistants, you have this whole range of stuff. And so what I do is I wear many of those hats. I go into a job and, my official title is director, but really, I do a lot of with graphics, replay, engineering and programming, rigging, just anything you can think of in the production world. Because of the industry that I'm in, um, I just gotta kind of do it all. And am I really good at any one of those things? There's a few things that I'm better at for sure. And that'd be a lot of the engineering side, setting up the machinery, setting up the equipment, as far as for the directing, and then actually like doing a show, and technical directing, and then calling the shots. I'm pretty good at that too. But even like I was at an event this last weekend, and I was working with a couple gentlemen that were probably in their 40s and 50s. And to give you some reference, I'm in my early 20s, and that 20 years of experience, boy, did they teach me a lot. Even though I'm kind of over them, so to speak, or directing the job or in charge, they're really the ones that are teaching me. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely pretty interesting when you talk about and how like we randomly got to know each other was I kind of got a phone call. You were going to need someone to come run a camera, and I wasn't able to make it. And so
yeah,
basically, like what you do is you work for a company called Frostview Productions, correct?
yeah, yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, and you guys produce the live streams, and I don't know what all technically you're producing. I know you're producing the live streams, but you're running basically the cameras. I think, are you controlling the jumbotrons as well?
Yeah, we do in-house and out-of-house feeds. So we stream to probably the most popular one that, people in the Western sports industry are going to know is Cowboy Channel. I think it's now owned by Teton Ridge.
Yeah,
So I'd say about 50% of our stuff is broadcast and put out to that platform. And then, we do some other like YouTube stuff here and there. And then we also do, like you said, the in-house video boards, and that's like our primary. Almost every single event we go to, other than a handful, we're bringing, LED walls, 20 by 11 walls that we set up.
that's crazy. And I mean, I mean, I think radio blew up. I mean, it was popular, and then it kind of like phased itself out. It seems like, and then it blew up. I don't know quite when it blew up either. I couldn't really put my finger on it. Because I went away from it for so long before I came back and was fighting bulls and stuff, and then I moved over to doing small media stuff for it, and now I do a little bit of judging. But like my big interest is like as soon as I got the phone call from you guys from kind of a mutual connection,
Mhm.
Dave Johnson, and he kind of like got us in contact, and that like we've stayed in contact now. That was what, a year ago now, I think it was roughly.
Yeah,
It,
yep, just about a year because that event's coming up again here in
yeah,
like 2, 3 weeks.
yeah. And sadly, you're not going to be there, so but yeah, I think the interesting part of your job is like you guys basically you're like you said, you're 20 some years old and you're controlling basically like the show. People don't realize like how much the announcers and that audio and that video drives that show actually.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny that you say that because I always joke with some of the guys that I work with that, is this going to be a show where we're leading or a show where we're following or a show where we're just supporting? And my opinion is that video is always there to support. You know, we are one of the only contract personnel that don't need to be there for the show to take
Yeah.
place. You got to have a stock contractor, you got to have an announcer. You pretty much at this point got to have music, to keep up with the pace of all the other entertainment. But people don't realize that um, there are thousands of, I think there's almost 1,000 or around there, or maybe more PRCA rodeos, and many of them don't have video boards actually. I think a lot of people are familiar with the Pendletons or the NFR, and they see all these big venues that have them. But if you actually are in the PRCA kind of group, I guess, or clique, and you go to some of these smaller ones, you realize that like in Wisconsin, where I'm out of, I can probably name off 6 of them that don't have video boards because they're not very big places. And part of that's whether they can afford it or not, but the other part of that is rodeo is very old school. So I've heard plenty of big places that don't want them because they want that traditional feel. They want people in the seats. They want to get people there. And then when they're there, they want them to feel like it's Western. And is technology really Western? Well, there's an argument that, it's kind of new age and not very, doesn't give it that feel, which I can understand too. But I guess, like you're saying, my thought is when we go in, since we're not needed, we're for support. We're there to enhance the show. But sometimes you go to a show and if the visibility is poor for, let's say, your announcer for where they're at or their music director, they're asking us for feeds all the time. They're saying, "Hey, can you give us this camera feed or can you put this screen on so we can see better?" Or a lot of times they're like, did you just see that ride? This is a once in a lifetime. You will never see this again, except for the fact that we have a video board, so let's show it on replay. And then we can actually sit there, go back, and we can make it slower for them, faster. We can replay it 2, 3 times. We can pause, start it, telestration. We can write on the screen, and we can show, the audience what that announcer just saw that they might have missed because that ride happens in what? If it's rough stock, 8 seconds or less. If it's breakaway roping, that's one of the huge criticisms with breakaway roping. It's so fast that contestants don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, you're
So there
talking
too,
two
you know,
seconds.
right? We can really support a lot of the stuff that's already going on. And sometimes, the announcer really relies on us or the music director really relies on us. And sometimes we're taking a backseat to them and they're telling us, "Hey, I want you to bring up that replay so we can see that again," which it's really cool in all respects.
Yeah, I mean, trying to think of how to word it. Yeah, I think you nailed it kind of there with like there's a lot of like a lot of people don't realize like how big the pro rodeo scene is and how there's a lot more people actually doing it than what they're kind of you're kind of seeing, like, you know what I mean, like there's a lot of them smaller ones that to local people it's just like your local rodeo. Like you don't realize how that's actually like the athletes that are there, like the pros and stuff. And I think it's crazy because bringing in the video side brings in that new age kind of that replay you see in normal sports, with whether it be football, basketball, all that replay you can show all the different angles. And I don't know, man, it gives it that new feel that, hey, this ain't dead yet. Like this sport is thriving, it's highly alive. I think it's bringing a lot of new people there.
Oh, for sure. And I think, like you said, at some point, rodeo was super popular. I hear multiple times that it's like the original American sport. It was around before football. It was around before baseball. And those are both things that are coined as being like America's pastime, right? And football is just huge now, but uh, it kind of fell by the wayside, and now you're seeing like a resurgence.
Yep.
And with that, I think the technology helps. You think of like the shows like Yellowstone that are out there and stuff like that. From what I hear, is making the sport really popular again. People see it on TV and they want to go experience it. They want to kind of have their little Western vacation, or they want to play cowboy for a month or two.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's like, and like, so a PRCA, some of them, not all of them, they go for like 2 or 3 days. Like they're not just, and it's a different set of athletes every single perf, and like it's 2 or 3 days long of different athletes. You know, they have perf winners and then they have overall winners at the end of it. We could spend a lot of time breaking down complete rodeo, but I think that's out here we see like 1 day rodeos and that's about it, like, or like a 2 day event or something like that. But like you see this surgence with like the PBR redoing kind of their thing and stuff and trying to rebuild their side of it because they've kind of became stale over there. Now they have the teams ordeals and all that
Yeah.
confuses me. I've got friends that are like they're into it. Like it's weird because like I don't watch it that much.
Hmm.
But me, my brother-in-law, my father-in-law spend a lot of time in rodeo, but we spend it more physically there, like not watching it as much anymore. Like I'll watch certain stuff on my phone or certain guys or certain videographers or photographers and stuff. But I think the cool thing about it is, like you said, like that resurgent that it's kind of bringing up and vibing now with this like new age streaming system.
Oh, definitely. I mean, people think about like the PBR, or maybe they know the PRCA, which are the big stuff, but I would tend to guess that if you're not from like Texas or maybe Arizona or Washington, those are the places that I found to be heavy into rodeo. You probably don't realize that there's like, the NPRA, the IPRA, the AUA, any
Yeah.
acronym you can think of, they're out there. The IPRA, if I didn't say that one, and the UPRA down in Texas, like those are just 5 or 6 of them that I listed off, but there's probably dozens of associations out there. We work for tons of different bull riding organizations, other than the PBR, and all of those places, especially some of the 1 day events and things, they produce great production. It's you go to the show and it's actually very entertaining to watch. And one of the things that I think that people miss too is that there's actually youth rodeos and even college rodeos. And where I was going with this is that at one of our college rodeos we stream, and it's down in Texas, and it's like the whole western part of the state is their region. We do over 1,000 runs a day. It's a
Oh
lot.
gosh.
And if you think about that, we're doing like 12 hours or something. So like they are every couple minutes they're putting in um, so many runs. And part of that is like 4 hours of it is actually a rodeo every day. The rest is all what you'd call slack. And they told me the streaming numbers, and it was something like close to, I believe, 500,000 views between or over that weekend.
That
Half a million views on just this one college rodeo.
I
Like
mean,
there's people out there that do this and want to watch it.
yeah.
And it's not just a few amount of people, it's a lot of people.
It's like, dude, you're saying that, and like for people who don't understand, like this ain't like your local someone streaming the high school sports. Like you guys are full production. Like these are getting names, times. Because we've talked about
Mhm.
this before. Because I want to do a little bit of radio streaming and stuff, but like we don't have nowhere near the setup, and nor like we talked like 10 minutes into like all the software, and I was like, oh shit, like I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point. Like I
Right?
underestimated like because like live streaming this, I could do live stream this and do very simple stuff. But
Yeah.
adding a second, third camera angle, I've got a switcher right here. I can do that. That's easy. But when you
Mhm.
start adding those different angles, adding replay, adding the like text, the times, and all that coming over, now you're like changing a complete game. Like it is I don't even know where to start with that. So we're not even gonna walk down that aisle. Maybe if you guys are ever out this way, I'll like come do a behind the scenes tour of y'all's insane setups because I've seen some pics and they're pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, and I don't know how far you want to get into it, but I'll tell you this much: like what we have and the equipment that I'm able to use, it's very rudimentary. Like the term that's always thrown around to me is skeleton crew. We come in with a skeleton crew. We have very few people, and then our equipment is all mobile, right? We operate doing rodeos, and rodeos are all over the country. And there's a few in Wisconsin where we're based out of, but there are especially other places. So that being the case, um, we're always on the move. Like, just this last weekend I was out in Utah. I literally just got home this morning after a 24-hour drive, and next weekend I'm going to be out in Nebraska. And I've been as far over as Arizona and had to drive all the way to Florida. So like almost West Coast to East Coast. It was like 6 hours from being over in California. So to do that sort of thing, you got to be able to pack up the equipment, be able to move it. And the venues that we're going into are small. They don't have they don't always have the power capabilities that you'd have as like a big venue, like a Coliseum or a sports stadium, and a lot of times they don't have the space either. You can't set up in a production room or something like that. They have the announcer stand that's been there for 20, 30, 50, 70 years. So because of that, the stuff that we work with, we use a lot of laptops, we use a lot of like mobile stuff that's built mobile, and it's really taken a long time to get it all put together, to have a system that works, and we're continually improving it, developing it, finding better ways to do it, smaller ways to do it, more efficient ways to do it. And luckily for me, when I got into the industry, I had some really good mentors that had already figured quite a bit of it out. And then based on what I'd seen there, I just took with it, like, took it and ran with it, so to speak. And I just really looked into, we're using this piece of equipment here. How can we make it smaller? How can we make it better? Or we're using this capture card. Well, what if we use this capture card? Like, will that work in our setup, and what advantages does that provide? And so I think a lot of people look at the equipment that we have and they'd go, well, that's only $1,000 capture card, or that's only a $2,000 computer. But at the end of the day, uh, I like to tell this story. I was at a place, and someone came up and said, oh, well, look at this equipment, kind of looks like a low budget production. And they didn't know who I was, or what I was doing there or whatever. I just happened to be talking to somebody. And when I work, I always dress up nice. So I probably look like another cowboy or something. And I immediately snapped my head around and I said, as far as I'm concerned, it's not about the price of the equipment. It's how you know how to use it. And a lot of those guys that have the $60,000 switchers or the $100,000 cameras, I've seen plenty of them that don't know how to use that equipment. And so I think what we have and what we're able to do, and the price point we're able to do it at, because that's super important for rodeo. Um, you know, they don't have the budget that ESPN has or the NFL has. So if we can provide that good quality product at a reasonable price point, I think that's going to keep on moving the industry forward, kind of like we're talking about. Keep introducing that technology to people that are honestly oftentimes opposed to it because they don't know what it is or how it incorporates. And if we can keep on doing that, I think we're going to see a lot more success in the rodeo industry as a whole.
Yeah, and we say all this time in the hunting industry, like at the end of the day, like the radio industry has to be a team. Like you can't go against each other because there is people on the outside that is against rodeo. Let's be honest. There's people on the outside that are against hunting. I mean,
Oh yeah.
you see it, I see it. Like, so you gotta have that. You gotta find a way to work together on the inside to make it work. As far as like being able to bring, like you said, bring this to like people who at home and stuff. And I think the cool one is jump back to the college radio. I know like I wanted to stream a high school radio, and it's one of the biggest ones on the East Coast. I think like my father-in-law started it. It's like number 2 or number 3 on the East Coast in size. And I was like, like there's a lot of people who like they can't make the travel here. Like their grandparents would love to watch them run, and that was my idea behind the thing. And I'm like, okay, I can produce it. I got to put a dollar value on it so I can produce it for this much. But then like we started looking at like what we lacked was like the technology side of what all we had to actually like produce it, which
Mhm.
is where you have all that extra stuff, and it's just very different.
Yeah, for sure. And some of those differences, especially are, if you think about something like soccer, you start a timer and you let it count down, and then you got to add scores. And there's one game going on, and then you look at football, it's kind of the same thing, and you look at baseball, and it's kind of the same thing. You got a couple more things to track, like fouls or maybe yards and stuff like that. But it's pretty like linear and straightforward. Where rodeo, you're doing 8 different kinds of events, and they're really broken up into um, 2 different types of scoring. One is by uh, points, and then the other one is by times. And then, the penalties for each are different. So you're really doing like 8 different sporting events all in one.
Yeah.
The way you film them is different. The angles that you need for each one are different. And then on top of that, you can add in that each individual contestant is getting a time and a score. So, where football, it's two teams. Like I said, for that college rodeo, for example, you have a thousand different runs in just one day, and we did like 3 days of rodeo there. So that's 3,000 runs over the course of a weekend. So it's like 3,000 little, competitions that you all gotta be able to sort out and basically rank against one another. And so to do that takes some pretty special equipment. And you're exactly right there, from the filming side, the stuff that we use, I can go online anytime and I can find like this article about this person that's using it to film swimming, or this person that's using it to film, uh, football or baseball. But, actually as far as the scoring goes, there's not really a whole lot of help out there because it is so tailored to rodeo. And really, what some of the only stuff that I can think of where I've found similar help, and even with like, oh, how do we display this on the video board, or how do we get this, to score one another? The closest thing I've found has been either like swimming or track is fairly similar. But again, those are very popular sports across the entire country, with probably 10 times the contestant amounts that rodeo has.
Yeah, and it's a
Every
different person. Everything's a different person. Like it's
right,
not even you don't even like in football the same guy's going to run the ball. Basketball, you're going to have about 7 guys going to
yeah,
score. You're going to have baseball. You got the same pretty much 22 guys all game. Like you have literally for 1,000 runs in a day, you have 1,000 different people. Some of those are going to do 2 events. I'd say in college you're going to
100%.
see lesser, probably less than 5% are going to do 2 sports in college.
Yeah, yeah, and handling that is probably one of the biggest challenges in the industry for video production. Definitely. A lot of the other competition that I see, if there's any place that it is like a stark contrast, that would be it, is the handling of all the graphics, lower thirds, the real-time data. Um, you know, they there's they really don't make the equipment anymore for it. Uh, the company that used to do it, and the software was last updated in 2014, I think. So it's it's pretty near impossible to get into right now, and uh, it's so specialized and expensive. I don't think anybody is really looking to lend out or give out equipment either, to someone to be able to do it. So that's kind of the one barrier to entry in the industry. There's a lot of need for it, but it's hard to be able to do it.
Okay, we're gonna circle back to that in just a second because
Mhm.
let's get to how because you're 23 you said or you didn't give me a
Yeah.
23.
Yes, sir. I'm 23.
So how did this 23-year-old get into the producing? Like let's jump there before we completely miss that. How you actually got into the industry?
Okay, so that's a super fun story, and it's super long. So if we got time, I'll tell it all, but
We got time.
I can kind of skip to a few important points. And I think the first important point is that when I grew up, like I said, I grew up on a farm. It was probably like 20 minutes outside of like our major metropolitan area, and we raised cattle growing up. And then I don't know, when I got towards high school, like I guess maybe just before then, our family shifted away from that. I worked with my grandpa a lot, like outside farming. We grew apples too, like truly like, family farm style. And when I got into high school, I ended up meeting some friends and hanging out with all the country people, or the wannabes, I should say. And that was the funny part, is they were all like countrynizing when I was like cityfying. So my family was getting away from it and their families were all like moving towards it. And so I always found that funny because, when I started to do these events and stuff, I'd always say, well, you know, they'd always give me make fun of me or whatever. And I'd be like, well, I actually raise cattle. So, have you done that? And not to say that, they're not any less or, I'm any more cowboy or anything like that, but it just, I knew it growing up, right? And and the funny thing about being out east is that we don't have ranches. We don't, or we don't really see ourselves as cowboys. We have farms, right?
Yeah.
A big like dairy farm. And we have beef cattle, but we're out there on ATVs, we're not on horses. To be honest, I can sit on a horse. That's about it. So,
Hey, I'm right there with you, man. I'll tell you real quick.
right,
A horse
right.
is they're dangerous on both ends and just crafty in the middle. That's the way I look at it. Like I can throw a rope and I can throw a rope off of a horse. But if that thing's moving, I got to hold on a whole lot more than I do care about throwing that rope.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And to me, like just the money that goes into it and stuff, it's beyond me.
Yeah.
Way beyond me at this
Yeah.
point. So that's an important point to keep in mind when it comes to me. Like, I think a lot of people they see me do all this techie geeky stuff, and that's what I've been told at these rodeos. But like deep down, to really know a person, look at how they grew up, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. I grew up on a farm. So coming from that lifestyle, like I said, I fell in with some people in high school, and their family was really big into the rodeo stuff, moving more towards it. So I went to a few rodeos and just happened to meet the right people and fall into it. And uh, you know, like I said, I had a lot of the engineering, videography experience in high school. Was going to go to school to become an engineer. Ended up starting my first business at 16, and it just life worked out where like I ended up falling in here, and I done it for a different company for a year or maybe a year and a half, and like I just like was good at it, like the way my mind worked, the stuff that was involved, and I was just like, wow, like this is enjoyable, really enjoyable, and figuring everything out. Like I said, I'm really good at the engineering side of it, setting up all the equipment, figuring out how it works together, and I would say, yeah, I think about a year and a half into doing it, my buddy approached me that kind of got me into it. And he said, I do the audio side of it, and we're looking at expanding into the video, and we'd love to bring you on. So I explored that route, which was Frostview, and sure enough, um, they brought me on early on into it, and based on the direction of, my boss and then him, and me, we've just exploded this thing. Like customer service is super important to us, and that's been crucial. I've seen tons of benefits to that. And like me, like ever thinking that I'd be good with customers was like way out there. But fortunately, I have some great mentorship within the company that really spurred that on. And on the flip side, the cool thing is that I'm allowed to teach all the technology side of it to people that never thought they'd be able to do that side of it, And so just as a company, we've really worked as a team to supply the industry with something that's really needed. And so if you would have told me, 5 years ago that this is what you're going to be doing in life, I would have said, you are crazy. I didn't like to travel. Um, I had thought for sure that I'm going to go to school to become a biologist or chemist or something like that. And I probably thought I was going to sit in an office all day. And when I actually tried that out, for a semester, I said, "There's no way you can coop me up in an office all the time." And when I started traveling, I started seeing other parts of the country, and I'm like, "Wow, like I was ignorant. I'm missing out." And I was just in Utah. Like the mountains there are gorgeous. The way people live there is different from Wisconsin. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's different, and it's nice to enjoy that for a weekend and then come back home. So that's how I got into it, and even gives you a little insight about why I guess I stayed in it too.
I mean that, dude. I think that's a dream job for a lot of people. They just don't. You you didn't just talk to the right people and run into the right people. You took advantage and like you made moves. Like it's awesome because like doing this and the cameras have gave me a chance to talk to like I would say a big handful of people that are like you and like they just took advantage of the situation and literally just talked to the right people, asked questions, was very interested in it, and they're now running, whether they're a production guy for this or running their own video production company in the outdoor industry. it's crazy, or they just work for an individual and their job is literally just to do videography and photography for them. Like it's so crazy that like the one thing they don't teach you in school is to be super curious and just ask a lot of questions, and it'll change your life. To be honest, I mean, it's how I've gotten to where I've gotten, and I've gotten nowhere. I don't, in my opinion, I've made it very little into this journey because I waited till I was 27 to really start pursuing when I should have started pursuing at 18. And I mean, that'd have been completely different. Like, I had the drive then, I kind of had the interest, but, you know, I went the route of college and stuff. And not that college is bad, you should go to college. But, like,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
it's just the craziness of learning that, like, you know, saying yes and kind of maybe taking advantage of a couple opportunities would have changed a lot of things.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's it's something that I think about and talk about regularly is um I realize that I've been super blessed and fortunate to be where I am in life. You know, I it's always good to, if you're an ambitious person, if you want to do well, if you want to move forward, um, you know, what's not measured, right, can't be can't be monitored or something like that. And kind of the principle is if you don't know where you're at, right, you don't know where you can go. So I always try and look at, you know, my peer group and how they're doing. And it does two things. One is it puts in context where you're at and where you're going. And the other thing is it gives you a little appreciation. So where I'm going with this is for like a 20 to 25-year-old, I think the like average amount that they have to their name is something around like 10 grand on average. And that's the people that have, you know, trust fund like $1 million, and like the people that are like, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in college debt after they're done, you know. And, you know, the average is around like $10,000. And maybe that's even generous, to be honest. And I can tell you that, you know, like this isn't bragging, but I'm very blessed if that's the case. And, you know, like we talked about, a lot of that comes with sacrifice. You know, you had to work hard. You know, I probably work about 100 hours a week right now, um, you know, to have made that happen. There's a lot of mistakes that I made too, but it really puts into perspective that, um, you know, I might not have everything I want right now. And that's one of the bad sides about technology is that they show you all these cowboys that are going out there and making like $1 million, right? And everyone wants to be like that. But just slow down, wait for a minute, and realize, you know, the average person, my age at least, has $10,000 to their name pretty much when it's all said and done on the balance sheet. And so I have a large appreciation that, you know, like it's going pretty good, you know, and that I can just, you know, I don't have to feel like distraught because I'm not at that $1 million or $1 billion status that you see all over social media all the time. So, you know, I think that's an important part to kind of keep it in perspective too is, you know, I may be 23 and doing all this, but at the same time, um, you know, like people are doing pretty good where they're at too, and they got to take time to appreciate that.
Yeah, I think something that like me and my wife's talked about before. You know, we got married at, I don't know, 28. I'm probably gonna screw up how many years we've been married. I'm trying to do it in my head quick, but I
Better be
s-
careful.
I said here in our kitchen of the house we've built. We've already built a house together. We don't plan on moving. We have two kids. Like it's one of those things where it's like sometimes we just say like, you're like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, because you see it on social media, and you see this and see that, and then at the end of the day, you're like, shit, like I kind of have a really good life. Like you got to slow down, like you say, and appreciate where you're at, or you're gonna literally be 55 and be like, oh shit, I missed my whole entire life trying to get somewhere where I was gonna end up, or I might not end up there, but it didn't matter. I didn't enjoy those, 30 years from my 20s to my 50s when basically you have no school. You kind of, your responsibility is whatever you bring up on yourself.
Right, 100%. And you know that what really got that going in my mind was when you said, you know, I wish I started when I was 18. Well, shoot, I wish I would, you know, would have started, doing a lot of the stuff I'm now when I was 16, when I first started. And let me tell you, I made a lot of mistakes and I made a lot of big mistakes. If people knew, the tens of thousands of dollar mistakes that I've made, they'd probably cry, you know. But that was all part of the path and plan to get where I'm now. And yeah, I think there's definitely, people out there that, and I've been this way too, that say, oh, well, I wish I would have done this 2 years ago, or I wish I would have done this, 10 years ago or whatever. But like, focus on doing it now. Like, that's the best thing I can say. The only way to get something done is by doing it. And so there's nothing that says, if you didn't do it 10 years ago, that you can make up 10 years in the next two. And I think that's what we forget, is that the only limit that you place on yourself is really, your own limit. So if you feel like you want to go out and you want to do 10 years worth of stuff in the past in the next two, I guarantee you can do it.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of that, like you said, is being curious and asking questions, because the best way to find out how it's possible is by asking people. I never thought I'd be great with customers. I hated working with people. And I forced myself to be in an uncomfortable position on a daily basis. That is something that I struggle with big time, is working with teammates that push me all the time and say, hey, like, what you did, that sucked and was unacceptable. And this is how you made that person feel. And on a daily basis, I struggle with that. It's hard for me. I go home and, or I call up my parents and, like, guys, like, my boss is saying this, and, that's tough. I don't know, like, how this is going to turn out. Like, emotionally, it's stressful. I go home tired. But I've seen just the progress over the last 6 months, the last year and a half. The way that I work with people is a lot more forgiving than I used to be. You know, I was always that guy that'd be like, "What do you mean you can't do that? Just get in there and do it." Like, the farm needs this done. Let's go fix it. You should be the same way. You know, Yell at people if they're not moving. That's how I was raised. If you're not getting going, you're getting screamed at. So I figured that that's how it should be for everybody. But that's not the case. You got to learn how to deal with everybody individually, because everyone's a different person. So that's a great example of just, like, get curious, like you said, ask questions and figure out a way to get what you want. Put in the hard work and do the stuff that needs to be done. And like you said, realize the situations that you have and take advantage of them. Don't pass over them. And sometimes that takes hard work or problem solving to do.
Yeah, I think I learned. I mean, that, like you said, like, uncomfortable, putting yourself in like a little bit of an uncomfortable situation can like improve you as a person. Like, I never thought that like when I started podcasting, the whole idea was me and a buddy was going to podcast together. Um, we didn't live like super close together. We had a great idea, because if you have two people, it's easy to banter with. You can go back and forth. You can push each other. He wasn't able to work it out, so then I replaced him with another friend who then wasn't able to work it out. And I was like, dude, like, I enjoy doing this, but I was like, how am I going to get guests? And then I landed one of probably like, and like, he would not appreciate it, but he was a decent sized guest. I mean, he's on an outdoor show on like Sportsman's Channel and stuff. And I literally sent him a message, and he was like, dude, yeah, we'll do it right now. And I was like caught off guard. I was nervous as could be trying to do this podcast with him. And I'm like, and then I met him in person. He's like, dude, like, don't ever sell yourself short. He goes, dude, you are whatever you want to be. And I think that you can do anything you want to do. Like, you might not get it done that moment. You might not get it done next week. But like, that mentality has like opened so many doors for me. And I mean, it has like helped me. And like, yeah, I'm not like doing videography and photography full time. I'm okay with that, actually. Like, it took me like I was like, man, that's what I want to be doing. But then I was like, like, I have a very comfortable, well-paying job that I can just kind of live very comfortably off of. And like, I can use all this to like benefit my family in the way of like, we go to Nashville for a long weekend just off of like money from doing videography work on the side. I get to buy a ton of hunting stuff. I get to go do all this crazy stuff. I mean, basically working for Dave Johnson, which I don't know, Diamond J. I think you probably done one or two of his shows. Maybe you have someone from Frostview has.
Yeah, I've heard of him for sure.
Um, literally just working for him and a couple other guys, I was able to just save money because I wasn't having to use that money for anything else other than just cover my gas to get there. Was able to basically start my own rodeo company. Like, I mean, how many people can just like take all their side money and dump thousands and thousands of dollars into starting a rodeo company just by going and asking questions? Like, I met him at a show and I just started bugging the crap out of him, asking questions. And he's like, just come to a show. Next thing I know, like he's paying me to be there, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of working out. It's a couple hundred, couple hundred. Next thing you know, you're making, like I do like a week and make like $1,500 on the side, and I'm like, crap, like this is decent little money all of a sudden, and I have nothing in it other than dirty clothes at the end of the night, like. And I learned so much from like you said, customer service, the way to run and manage a business, the way to handle a lot of things. And like it was all just from asking a bunch of questions and bugging somebody. I mean,
And I honestly, that ties back into what you said before about, the things they don't teach you in school. Everyone says that they should teach you finance in school. It's like, well, guess what they do? They do teach you taxes and finance in school. What they really need to be teaching you is business and entrepreneurship. And and the reason I say that is because it ties into a lot. It ties into motivation. It ties into like family life, and even people that go into business, they struggle in family life. And it's like, gee, like, if, I think people look at business owners and corporations and they say, wow, they're doing good. They got all this freedom. They got this, they got that. It's like, well, the grass is always greener on the other side. And I've seen that firsthand, from watching other people and myself. And it's like, well, it's really more about the relationships, the emotional relationships between people, and then the relationships between, the finances and the technical aspect of it, your hard skills and your soft skills in relation to their own pool, and then how you connect those two. And I think that would be a better thing to teach in school. And what that exactly boils down to, I can't really say, but thinking back, I'm not saying that farm kids are the best kids, but what I am saying is that they grew up in an experience and environment that taught them hard skills and soft skills, how to use soft skills with soft skills, hard skills with hard skills, and how to use hard skills with soft skills. Like they have a good blend and they're a well-rounded person. Um, and in school, it was something that we talked about is what you'd call the Renaissance man, and it's that idea that, a person has some, artistic taste, right? And they have some mechanical ability, or maybe they're able to play an instrument or sing, or, they're maybe okay at arithmetic. And, that boils down to the saying that, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And I think that's what we got to start teaching more in school is that, it's okay to have that side job, and you should be proud of it, like, because you're good at more than just one thing. And you don't need to go to school to become just a doctor or lawyer or one thing. You can go to school and it's okay to switch from biology to chemistry to physics, or it's okay to switch from accounting to choir. Like whoever said that, when you go through life you got to just do one thing. Nobody ever said that. I think society, we kind of pressure it. It's like if you're a doctor you should only be doing doctor stuff. It's like, no, if you're a doctor and you like flying planes, or uh, the model planes, like 100% go do that. Like what, why did we ever get so ingrained? Like, you know, hey, what do you do for a job? Oh, I'm a doctor. Well, that's Nathan the doctor over there. That's all he is. That's all he ever will be. I, that's recent history. Probably in the past 50 to 100 years we've done that. Or maybe a couple hundred years, but for thousands of years, we've been hunters, gatherers, farmers. We've had to do it all, fix it, figure it out. you know if you needed stuff done at home, you had to do it yourself. If you needed stuff done to get food, you had to do it yourself. If you needed to raise the kids, you had to do it yourself. It's just recently that we've been able to kind of divide and conquer as a society, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong. We're able to do so much more, but at the same time we got to keep a little humanity in it too, and realize that if you go to college, you can still be a tradesperson. You can still do carpentry. You know, if you're smart and you could be a doctor, you know, you're not wasting anything by building houses because you need smart people building houses too. And on the flip side of that, you know, if you're, you know, if everyone tells you you should be a carpenter and that's all you are and all you ever will be, there's nothing wrong with painting pictures, you know, because carpenters are some of the most creative people and artistic people that I know because you got to get pretty creative to build a house. So yeah, I like you're saying, I think there's that missing element that we're not teaching in school, and that boils down to kind of a lot of what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think to relate it real quick back to our whole idea of like videography and like the streaming and all that. Because as you're saying it, I'm sitting there thinking like I'm a little bit of a nerd. I grew up on a farm and stuff, but I was the nerdy kid on the farm that like out of like my like I want to say a lot of my really close cousins. I went to college. They all kind of did like different type of schooling and like went on to the trades business and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with all that. Like I kind of honestly, the only reason why I ended up in college was because of a college football scholarship. That's literally the only. I'll say right now, like I only played 2 years, but that's the reason why I have an engineering degree is because I was there for two, and I was like, well, might as well go ahead and finish this out. Like, I mean, my parents have already,
Hmm.
I mean, bless them, they paid to kind of get me there, so I was like, I might as well go ahead and finish this out. But like, you think of all like to get nerdy, and we think of like like a big thing now is like gaming, streaming, and stuff. So
Yeah,
many of those guys did like had other like real jobs in their life and literally just started streaming, and then it just became a thing now where like there's some of the richest people out there when you look at the upper end, and it's like, and like I don't want to say their business is a scam. I'll say because it's not a scam. They're doing something people enjoy watching. People give them money. It's no different than a guitar player at a concert or a singer at a concert. It's no different than that.
right.
Their platform
It's
is
entertainment.
just through media, social media, on your computer, on your phone, YouTube, any other of the streaming platforms. But it's crazy to think that that was like you said, that wasn't their main job. Like they're a lot of them are ex-military or they're ex like scientists or they were like a worked in some type of business office or like a law firm. It was like, I don't really like my day to day. I'll do this at night. I enjoy that. And then it just fell in their laps. They're like, I'm going to do this full time. And it's crazy when you hear those stories because you're like, it should be inspiring to someone that like, like if you hate your job, don't maybe quit it at the moment, but find what you like and start doing it on the side. And maybe like you can find a world where you do them both. They're both very much a part of your life. Like this, like I enjoy my day to day job. I enjoy this stuff. I enjoy the media side, and all that, and I can make it work where it's in my life now.
Oh, and 100%. I think that you doing your job and then doing the stuff that you like on the side, you know, that's a perfectly good way of doing it. And I had a conversation with one of my high school classmates' fathers recently, and you know, he's saying like, oh, you know, his name's also Isaiah, so you know, his son Isaiah, he's like, yeah, he really wants to build houses, and it's like, you know, I really want him to build houses too. And you know, I asked him, I said, well, what's holding you guys back from doing it? He goes, well, he has a really good job, you know, 6 figures plus job, and it's like those just don't come along every day, right? And it's like, do you really want to pull someone away from, you know, $100,000 year job to be making like $40,000 a year right now? And that's a tough one, you know, to figure out and ask yourself, you know, because you know you'd love the one more. I think the end payoff is there, but it's like you don't really get it all up front, um, you know, like you would working for somebody else. And so, you know, that's part of it too. Like I said, it's I think people look at business owners and they kind of, I know I idolize them a little bit, but at the same time, like having my own business, I realize it's not all it's cracked up to be because you put in a ton of hours to make it happen. And I think like for your case, you know, we're sitting here doing this at night, you know, after work, after you've done your chores on the farm, and it's like, you know, how many hours are you going to put in today? because that's a lot of times the only solution is that if you want to do the regular job and do that side hustle, you just gotta do a ton of hours to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, you might be. I mean, I've done for the longest time. Like, I have an electrical background, and I'd always like agree to do some electrical side work. You know, it pays better than this pays, but it is so much more. Like, you don't get paid up front, and it adds about 7, 8 late nights in a row. If you can work them all in a row, like we said, like we had trouble scheduling this for the longest time because I'd have something come up, you'd have something come up. We were bouncing back and forth, just trying to get free days. And it's like crazy to think that like I've got a buddy who started a business, and I won't say what it is because his current or his ex employer probably wouldn't have enjoyed that he started his business. But
Yeah.
like he basically started like you said, a construction business, but like he had a day job. He'd work it. He worked it for like a year, like on the side in the evenings, doing any construction work, any type of like in that industry that he could get, anything from clearing land to installing something, the remodeling, anything like that. And now he's worked himself up where like um the funniest story, sorry there. Him and another buddy went to go buy a piece of machinery. We'll call it a bulldozer. Some people might figure that
Mhm.
out if they know who I'm talking about. Well, actually, they went to get one like fixed or something. I don't know what happened. And the boy he took with him, he tells the story the best. He's like, yeah, he goes, 6 hours later, we're leaving with a brand new bulldozer. And he goes, I thought we were going to get killed when we got home. I was like, hey, at least that one was not broken. He's like, yeah, it wasn't broken, but it was going to cost a lot. I was like, that's, I mean, and that was a risk. I mean, that was a pretty big risk that he took. Like, I mean, you're talking, I assume it was a $60,000 to $70,000 difference in what he had on his hands and what he had and what he purchased. And I mean, you got to take chances, and sometimes they work out, and sometimes they don't. I mean, I took a lot of chances when I started a radio company. I took a lot of chances every time I bought one of these cameras that it's going to work out. Like at the end, like you
Right.
might take a little extra, but you'll get there.
Well, and I think that circles back to what we've been talking about is, whether it works out or not, at some point you got to make it work, right? And
Yeah,
I work with a couple of different people on a couple of different things, deals and stuff. One of them is real estate, and my dad and I work together on that. He's really the one that got me into it, and he has a lot of anxiety over buying property, and I mean, you should, you know, or maybe not anxiety, but due diligence and concern, because I mean, we're looking at properties that are $300,000 routinely, $250,000, and it's like, sure, inflation is taken that and made it not worth as much, but that's still not a small chunk of change
no,
compared to what people make, and and he has a lot of valid concern. But I told him, I said, if we keep on looking for the perfect property, or if we keep on hoping that this deal is always going to work out, I said, we're never going to buy anything because there's never a 100% guarantee that you're going to make money. There's always something that comes up. And it's very rare that, you even pick the 90 or 80% guarantees. More often, it's usually 50-50. But fortunately, I've learned in life everything is 49-51. And so if you're going into the stock market or the real estate or buying another camera or buying a bulldozer, if you just put in enough work to get you from 50 to 51, you're golden, you know? And sometimes that works a lot more, sometimes that works very little, but that's the big thing that I'd look at is like, you know, I'd like to do this deal because I think it's going to make some money for me and it'll be good for the people around me and it'll be good for the community or, good for the country or good for the world. And like, what does it take for me to get that from a place where it might work out to a place where it will work out? And some good examples of that is the house that I'm in right now. When we bought it, we thought we were overpaying for it, and turns out that wasn't the case at all. Super good deal. And it had these like it has a great big two-car garage, and it had some old garage doors. Well, it just so happened that about 3 months later, um, we on another one of our properties, we had some hail damage, and insurance came out, said, you need to replace these garage doors. They're cosmetically, they're not brand new or whatever, I guess,
Yeah.
which is complete foolishness. And thankfully, it's worse for us as a buyer of the insurance. I think they're kind of starting to realize that you don't need to replace a perfectly good aluminum garage door if it's dinged up a little. And so they're starting to come around on that. It makes more sense financially for the insurance company. But for us at the time, we're like, well, now we got to replace these, and it's kind of a shame and a waste. And I just said, they're gonna have to dispose of this, and what is that going to cost? And so, anyways, I did a little research. Well, sure enough, a company would take them to this property and kind of replace the old, not so good garage doors with these perfectly fine ones from our other ones for $300. Insurance covered it and everything.
Yeah. That's
Like, and it's stuff like that where we added probably, I'd say $5,000 worth of value to this property for on the insurance dime. And sure, we pay for it, but it would really maximize the money that we've been paying for the insurance on that property. And then as far as this one goes, like, between that and a few other things that we did, like it made it blatantly obvious that this was a deal. And if you had just came in and bought the property as it was and that was it, like would it have still been a deal? Yeah, I'm sure it would have been a deal, but would it have been like a home run? No. But was it a home run because we did like a little more and put in some extra to it? Oh yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, like it's crazy when I think back, like the moves that we kind of saw and were able to make. Like you said, taking advantage of those opportunities, and it might be this small one, and then this small one, and then this small one, but eventually, like you're way up here, and it's like you came in down here, and I don't think that just applies to business. It applies to your job. If you can make one little small difference, and maybe you're nice to somebody this day and give them a coffee, or you help somebody learn this little thing, or maybe you do something a little bigger and you take on a big project. Like eventually you're going to look back at the end of the year and you're like, wow, I made this much difference in the company. And maybe your boss only sees this much because that's always the employee boss dynamic, right? You do this much, they see this much, right? But they're still going to see a bigger chunk if you end up here. um, and it's the same thing at home too. I think about that a lot. I don't have a family yet, but I I have a huge respect for people that do a great job raising their family. And like you've told me multiple times, like, oh, we can't do it. I want to spend my time with my family. I can tell that that's the case a lot. And it's like, yeah, you can't go to every game. You can't always be there. You can't always, do it perfectly. But if you just do this little bit and then this little bit, or you go to this game and maybe you tell your kid, hey, I know that I said darn it, but you know, you really shouldn't be saying that. And then, you kind of stack it up. It's like you kind of look back and you're like, wow, like I started here and we're here right now. So kind of just that idea of the grind, I guess, of just putting in the work and making stuff happen.
yeah. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'm sitting here like I'm like, man, this has been kind of one of the best, one of my favorite podcasts so far I've done, and just because like we've got to dive so much into just a lot of guys like normally hunting guys, so we talk hunting like this is we've got to talk like a very. I love it because I love the media side of it and all that, and the radio side, but we've touched on it, but we've talked a lot more about other stuff, which is amazing. Like it is,
Hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't change what we've talked about so far at all. It's just like your insight. Not to call myself old, but there is 10 years different, over 10 years difference in us. And like your insight on life is amazing at your age. And I would love to see, like, I hope my kids have this view of life as they get older. So, like, I need it, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much that you can,
Yeah.
like, it's one of those things you're like, oh, you're wise beyond your years. And it's like hard work and family and like your attitude has got you there. And I applaud you for that.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. And I think my big thing is I want to share that with other people. And that's why I was happy that you reached out about this podcast. And I can definitely tell that whether you feel like it or not, that you have a lot of the same characteristics. You're out there doing some, where a lot of people sit and watch the content, you're making it, right?
Yeah.
And, that's, I guess, what I'd tell anybody is that, you may look at somebody else and be like, oh, well, I wish I were them or I'd want to be them. But it's like, no, you're you. And just go keep being you. And if you want to be successful, you know, just be you and then pick up those good traits of like working hard, and sticking to your values. Like a lot of that is all it takes. And there's 8 billion people in the world now. Like, you might not agree with everybody's political views or religious views or ethics, but there will be people like you that do agree with you, and you can work to get together with them, be a team with them, and then you guys can help build up your little section of the globe.
Yeah. So we've been going here an hour, and I don't want to hold you. I know it's not as late on your side, but
Mhm.
um, let's jump back over the rodeo and stuff. What is maybe one of the funnest shows you've got to do so far?
That is a great question. And I think until this last weekend, I would have said like, oh, like this one is good for this reason and this one's good for this reason. And that's how a lot of them are. Like each little rodeo has its own thing. But this last weekend, we did a show out in Utah. It was called the Rocky Mountain Rodeo Challenge. It was with Austin Stingley and a great crew of people. Like Drew Taylor was there on music. Greg Simons was the announcer. They had a ton of just like A players as far as the production team goes. And it's only in its second year, but this thing is geared for production. It's geared to be a show. And one of the comments that was made to me, well, there weren't a lot of cowboys and there weren't a lot of rides. And it's like, so this show was awesome. Like you went to it and I was sitting there, and to be honest, the first night wasn't from a production standpoint perfect, right? The crowd didn't care. They're taking off their shirts, they're twirling them around. We're getting all this on camera, and that's just from my perspective. You know, the fans were eating this up, and that's what it's about because without them, rodeo goes back to just a smoldering ember, a fire that's slowly dying out. And you know, it from my perspective, coming from the outside, this was shared to me. It was a family's passion, and they kind of showed me, they brought me into it, and now I'm a part of it, right? And I'm somebody in the industry that can make a difference. And so, from my perspective, I'm all about like inclusion. Like we should be sharing this with as many fans as we can because they love this and it supports the people that are the core group. It shouldn't just be for the core group, it should be for everybody. Um, and it really helps supports the Cowboys that are doing it all season long. And so that was what was cool about this show, and that's why I liked it so much, is that it was a step away from this is how we've always done things, the traditional rodeo sense, and it was more of we're gonna do this, you know, crazy video sequence and pyro and lights, and we're gonna get these people geared up in the first 30 seconds, and then after that 30 seconds, we're not gonna just slide into rodeo. We're gonna make this a show that people want to come to year after year. And that's what we did. Like this thing was just electric. The things that we did on video with it, I mean, was it perfect? Was it great? No. A lot of improvement. I got a lot of suggestion myself from some of the more senior video guys, but on the flip side, it's stuff that's not being done in rodeo. Like, you go to some of those big shows and they have the pyros and the lights in the video, but the experience of this whole thing, um, was just it was fan orientated, and just the show itself was fun. People were always cheering. People were always loud. They were involved. They were engaged. I think those people. I've never seen people watch the video screen so much.
And
Literally, you put somebody on that video screen within 3 seconds, bam, they know they're on it and they're like dancing or doing the kiss cam, beer chug, like dance cam, whatever it was we had at the time they're doing it, and it was just electric.
and for a lot of people don't realize like rodeo is an easy sport. I mean, you have animals that don't really care about you're trying to put on a show. They can decide to like ruin the show pretty quick. And if you like, you can lose a crowd like that in a second. They're gone. They don't care.
Oh yeah.
We've dealt with that. Like it was one of the biggest things I was taught going into the rodeo industry, and that's one of the things that I'm a little hesitant about live streaming is you have to be able to like keep them there. Like you can't just like lose them. Like there has to be an entertainment value to it, and that's what, like, from what I'm seeing from you guys and what you've done, I love it. That's what I'm seeing, and that's why, like, I stayed in contact with you guys, because I'm like, eventually you guys are gonna end up out here out east. I'm gonna like make the drive up just to hang out. Like I don't even want to work or nothing. I just want to like hang out and just like behind the scenes watch, and I think it'll be one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah, and I know that we're starting to do a few big shows out there too. So I would definitely say, stay in contact as far as that goes. But back to what you're saying about keeping it interesting. I actually have a little bit of a take on that. And here's my take is if you're doing rough stock, that's what people go there to expect. They expect it to be high energy, high pace. Like you got to keep it interesting, like this last show. This last show was bulls, broncs, and barrels pretty much. So it was rough stock and then barrels. So people went there expecting high energy.
Yeah,
And if that there were multiple animals that reared up in the chutes or they sat down, or they weren't being cooperative, right? They weren't perfect. And it's like that's what you expect. And from my perspective at least, those animals are worked with. They're truly a rodeo athlete, and the stock contractors do a great job of going in there and working with them so that they perform well. It's not like, they're just,
yeah,
roughed around in there. No, like there needs to be time to do that. And from the production side, like that's what we get to do. Like, and if you, that's the cool thing with us is that, am I super knowledgeable about rodeo? No, but I have enough rodeo knowledge to say, oh, that bull, he's not cooperating, or I can see like the way he's acting, like probably in about 3 seconds here, they're gonna want to move to something else. So I'm already on a camera in like the crowd, or doing some crowd interaction, or already moving to the clown. And that's what I was saying when we got into this is, uh, the video and rodeo is really a support role because we can go and we can be on the front end and we can see that, like, oh, this guy wants to rewrap. Like I can tell, like his wrap is sloppy and he's looking like he wants to rewrap. He's going to rewrap. We need another minute for him to get ready. And
yeah,
I'm already on something else. And the clown sees that. So the clown's taking, a hold, or the barrelman's taking a hold of it and he's, acting on it. So that's the cool part about this last show. But on the other side, I don't think it has to be interesting or it has to be high paced or energetic. If you look at a sport like team roping, I think it's like golf, right? Golf is on for what, 8 hours a day, and people watch that. I'm like, how? Like it's so boring. But when I watch team roping, I understand. Like I understand how people would just sit and watch something for a long amount of time because if you have I'm gonna get the terminology wrong. I'm not a super big into team roping, but if you got like three head or three goes, and you come back in that final round, and you're a two slot or a three slot or something like that, you're worried about your time, you know, and maybe the top three payouts are 60, 50, and 40,000, and then if when you get into the next ones, it's like 5, 6, 7,000, or 7, 6, 5,000 or something crazy like that. And or if the top three pay a truck and then the next ones just pay cash and you really want the truck or something, you're kind of thinking maybe instead of going for the gold, I just get bronze. That still pays pretty good, because if you miss one head, that can bump you down to last place,
yeah,
right? Where if you just rope the thing even at a higher time, so it's like playing chess is what I'm saying.
yeah. It's
I
definitely
have a
a
lot more
different.
respect for it,
Yeah,
right? Because there's a lot that goes into it mentally. So I think that there's a lot of different sides to rodeo, especially from the production side, is that a lot of people focus on like the PBR and the bulls, broncs, and barrels and the fast-paced, energetic. But like I said, I think they leave out the college rodeo where there's 500,000 views over a weekend because grandma wants to watch and the uncles want to watch and the kids and stuff. And they leave out the team roping side of it where it's like playing chess, for 8 hours. And people want to watch that too.
yeah. I mean, there's associations just built around the roping association. I mean, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's one of the most expensive games to get into, but it's probably, I would say, and for the people that love the bulls, barrels, and broncs, roping is probably the most, like, outside of barrels, roping is definitely the next most popular within the rodeo people's industry. Because your slack is
I would say,
99% of the time, it's always going to be ropers.
I would say that, I would have to do the numbers on it and do some research into it, but I have a hunch that there are more roping fans and watchers out there than there are fans of bull riding and barrels and bronc riding.
Yeah.
Just because of the sheer amount of people that you have, or I shouldn't say there's more fans, but there's more audience for it. Just because of the sheer amount of people that you have associated with roping. You go to one event and there's 300, 400 teams, each with two people, that's 800 people. And, each of them have grandparents and, parents and brothers and sisters and nephews and nieces. And for some of these big things, they all want to watch, they all want to see how they do.
Yep.
And it's a ton of people when it comes down to it that you can reach.
Yeah, to quickly look at the math, you have two people, like you said, like basically a basic high school rodeo in West Virginia. You'll have, and like West Virginia is a small rodeo team, so this is an easy way to do it. They have like two bull riders, zero bronc riders. They'll have a group of barrel racers, but then all the rest are like ropers. I mean, there'll be 30,
Yeah,
like 30 ropers by the time you're done with it. And I mean, that's because that's what almost all the girls will rope. All like 90% of 95% of your boys are roping. That's why they're there. They're not riding bulls. I mean, they're roping. I mean, it's definitely got a bigger, I think, draw to it.
for sure. And, is it appealing to the outside world, or even to the rodeo world? No, but then again, a lot of people watch golf, and there's that group of people that love to watch it, and they're going to go to the finals every year, and spend a ton of money to see it.
Yep. Okay, let's one more thing before we wrap this up. What is been your favorite food at one of these venues? Or
Favorite food?
yeah, your favorite food. And it's just something I thought of because like I was thinking, man, you've traveled like you said, Arizona to Florida to Utah to everywhere in between Texas. I mean, like is there something I mean, you are from Wisconsin, and it's everybody talks about the cheese. Is it cheese curds or something? Y'all are famous for up there. My company actually got bought by a company in Wisconsin for a while, so we were all making Wisconsin jokes at work for a while, but about the cheese curds because that's what we all heard about. And I'm like, they're good, but I mean, not my most favorite thing. But what's something like when you go to like maybe back to somewhere that you're like, I'm getting this food or something.
Yeah, I think this this is going to be a little long-winded, but it's worth it. And that is like, I'll tell you, I'm super fortunate. Like people don't give the Midwest enough credit, right? They look out at California or Florida and all the parties and stuff. But I gotta say, I just gotta put this out there. The Midwest is the best. Like it is. Because the economy that we have out here is phenomenal. The cost of living is super low, and it's way, especially Wisconsin at least, is way prettier than people give the Midwest credit for. Like the amount of different sorts of um, like geography and stuff that we have is just crazy. And so yeah, like sure you can make the cheese jokes. The cheese is good, like no other place compares. But I'm just super blessed to live where I am because it's amazing here. It really is. And I've thought about moving some other places based on what I've seen, but just no other place really compares. And as far as the food goes, though, I would have to say Abbeville, Kansas
I
is
was
the
I
best
was gonna
place.
guess Kansas. I was like, I bet he's gonna hear Kansas.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had some great food all over the place. Like I had some lobster up in Northern California, and I'd never had lobster before. Oh my gosh, is that good? Like it's really good, and it was really good out there. I'll go back to a steak time and time again. If you go to Wyoming, Douglas, Wyoming, there's a bar there called the College Bar. You can get a great steak. There's some great seafood joint down in Florida. I forget what it's called. But I gotta say the best that I ever had was if you go to Abbeville, Kansas, and they got two things. They not only have number one, but they have one and two. Okay. So the first is that they do like a pit barbecue. So I'm sitting there at this rodeo setting up and in the announcer stand, and I look out the window and there's like a group of guys with a golf ball. They're dipping it in like lighter fluid or in yeah, like grill fluid and or gas maybe, and lighting it on fire. And then they're trying to hit it with a golf ball into this pile of brush. And I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, they're like starting this pile of brush on because they cleaned up the rodeo grounds for the year or whatever, and this was all the trash. And nope, like, and then they're going and get this ball of uh, toilet paper, soaking it in there, lighting it, and then they're like tossing it in or something. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, these guys are crazy out here. Well, like 2 days later, I find out that what they're actually doing is that they were burning down this like hedge brush is what they call it. It's like yellow wood or something like that, or yellow oak or something like that. And it's like a specific super hard wood. They burn it down. They mound it up in this pit. It burns down into coals, and then they take just chunks of meat. And when I say a chunk of meat, you're not talking like 1 or 2 pounds. You're talking like, roast size, like double roast size. And they're taking them, they wrapped them in burlap, soaked burlap, and then in nets, and then they did one more layer of burlap, I think. And they tossed it in this pit, and then they covered it up with, they had special like boards, like built, like if you almost built like a 2x4 wall, sheeted it, and then just laid it on there, like that's what they were doing. And then they covered it with some tar paper so that the sand didn't get through, and they covered it with sand. They left it in there for 3 days, and I was there when that stuff came out of the pit. Whew. Some guy says, "Oh," he goes, "let's try some right now. Let me go run and get a knife." Everyone there just laughed. And then you hear it, "You're not going to need a knife for this, son." Like, oh, and sure enough, like they brought this stuff out and it just fell apart. Literally the best meat I've ever had anywhere. Just so tender and juicy. And oh my gosh, like when they talk about like falls off the bone, this stuff like just falls off itself. Like you don't need no bone. It just falls apart. It was amazing. And then the second thing that they have there is they don't serve any alcohol at the rodeo, Dry County or whatever. And if you talk to anybody, and anybody who's anybody that's been there knows that they sell pie instead. And it's these ladies from the community that have probably made pie for the last 30 years, and they've had 30 years to perfect it. And when these ladies would roll up, they'd roll up in with their minivan, and the seats would be down, and it'd just be pies from back to front. And it's like they've had hundreds of pies, making experience underneath their belt, and it's like, whew, I at least had 2 or 3 of them every day, slices of pie, any kind you can think of.
I was about to say what flavor.
Peach. Oh, any of them.
Okay.
Apple, peach, berry, every berry you can think of, blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, gooseberry, blackberry, wild berry, mixed berry, and then pecan, French silk, chocolate, you name it, they have it there. It was crazy. So I would definitely say that one had the best food
Yeah,
for sure.
I might have to
One and
tell.
two.
I might have to tell my father-in-law we need to put that one on the list to go out there to that one because we have plans. He's wanting to like. He hit me up. He's wanting to go watch the Big 12 basketball tournament next year in Kansas because he's a big WU fan, and so for some reason we play all the South and Midwest teams in the Big 12. But that's crazy. Yeah, I'll definitely have to mark that one down and make notes about going there.
Oh, 100%, totally worth it. 100%.
Okay.
And the I know that you wanted to ask about the timing equipment a little bit more for rodeo. And so if you got time, I'll definitely make that happen too, because I think it's an important part of the puzzle.
Yeah, we got about 20 minutes here. We can hit that up for like 20 minutes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah, we got about 20
what was your
minutes here.
take on it? I guess what were your questions about it?
I mean, because it's not for people who think it's not. It's like a very old technology. The way like I understand it, it's not like an. Oh yeah. So why do you think no one's coming back and recreating it? Is it because like the world just doesn't see it as a necessary item because like the technology, like we have the technology for someone who has the time to go like digitize it and make it a better, cleaner software. I mean, but no one's doing it. Is that because you think unfortunately rodeo is just kind of not as popular as the other ones? So like it's kind of just got to survive off that old technology that someone else created.
Yeah, that's exactly it, really. The big thing is that the market is very small. The company that used to do it is Daktronics, and they want to sell a $500,000 video system to a place that's like, um, you know, a sports center, like these coliseums and sporting venues. They don't want to sell, maybe 50,000 or even $20,000 worth of equipment to a small video company. They want to sell a $500,000 worth of equipment. So that's one thing is that it's a very niche industry. There's, maybe 2 dozen companies that really do it full time, Western sports, and then maybe another dozen that kind of dabble in it. So, maybe at most you have 50 customers for this thing. Uh, on the flip side, too, uh, there's a lot of, I think, outside pressure that chews up the resources. So, like we talked about with the people that do the video games, right? It's all entertainment. And the way that I look at it, it's a lot of fluff. It does some good for society as a whole. It moves a lot of money around, but there's no real tangible benefit or improvement on anyone's life. It's not like, if you go and buy a nicer house, you get something for that, you know? Um, or I shouldn't say it that way. If you just go and buy a house, you have shelter, right? If you go and buy a bigger house, how much more do you really get? And that's kind of the same thing with entertainment. It makes you feel good and kind of gives you a release. And so emotionally, I think it's good. But there's only so much you can get from it. And above and beyond that, it's there really isn't a whole lot. And so I think a lot of the people that are able to do the technology side of it for a place like Rodeo, they're pulled into, Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or, um, Google or all these other big tech companies. And, even if you look at the stock market right now, what's leading the stock market is seven big tech companies, right? They call it the Magnificent Seven. And so if those companies have the most money in the entire American economy, right? And really in the entire world, they're pulling in the best and the brightest, and they have all the money to throw at those people. And unfortunately, those are the same people that I think we need in rodeo to push it forward, right? And come up with this sort of stuff. And so I think that's why no one's done it yet, is that there's not enough money to make it happen, and that anyone that would be remotely interested in it is off doing other entertainment. They're already chewed up doing stuff. So I think that's really one of the main reasons that the technology side of rodeo has suffered as a whole.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much answered the question I had. Like I kind of knew it, but like I knew you could go more in depth and kind of lay because you're in it every day. You kind of get to see what you need and stuff. Because it's kind of the crazy thing. Like it's funny enough. Like this evening, like I was getting everything set up for this, and I had an idea about something. I actually text my wife's cousin, and this was one of the things in my mind. And I'm like, and the first thing in my mind was the market is so low, it literally has no value. You would have to like all the effort and stuff you're going to put into it. You'd have to sell it for more money than these guys want to pay for it because they're not big enough to really do it. It's going to take someone. I think it's going to take some young kid or group of young kids that are very technology driven, code driven, that comes into the industry for some reason that just rebuilds it and gives it away for free. Because that's how it'll get. Like you'll get an update on it. I feel like.
Yeah, and I guess I think the best shot that I see is that right now there is a need for this, there is a want for it, and you know, Daktronics said that they're not going to support it anymore. So I've actually been working on, a replacement for it up until this point, and it's like, the issue there is that it takes time. If you don't have all the money and resources in the world to do it, you know, with the small market cap, I've been working on it for 2 years to replace it. And what the product that I'm able to show people now, they look at it and they go, wow, like this is a game changer. Like we can't wait to use this. Like if you beta test this thing, I want to help test it. I want to work with it and stuff. And it's like, yeah, everyone wants to use it, right? But the work that goes into it is like, you know, like I said, the concepts for this were drawn up, a year, 2 years ago. And then from there, actual building of it began 6 months later, and then revisions. And now 2 years into it, we're finally getting to the beta testing point. And it's like there's a lot of things that are still questionable, to get it to work where it needs to be because, some of the challenges we talked about earlier. Rodeo is a different animal. There's 8 different kinds of events, if not more, if you do like steer roping or, some of the other associations do like wild cow milking, and you got to be able to handle all of that is what these companies are looking for. And so to do all those different little specialty use cases, there's a lot of little bugs that you need to work out. So it's it's definitely a challenge for sure. And I think that's part of the reason too why people haven't taken it on is it's not only a low paying venture, but it's also a high demanding venture too.
Yeah, and like you said, like once you get the 8 main, if you were to get the 8 main, someone would be like, "Well, I have wild cow milking. Like, can you just add that?" And it's not as simple as 2 clicks. It's there. It's like there. I mean, you completely. It's basically another complete project to an extent. I mean,
Right.
because of how it's going to function, how it's going to work, and like then you got to have the ability to. I'm just guessing. Tweak the software within itself so you can change the kind of the look of something so that like everybody's not looking identical, that this production company doesn't match this production, doesn't match that production. Like everyone can tweak it enough where like it's the same, but they're kind of changing how it looks when the final product hits the screen.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And, every time you're able to tweak something or change something, I found that, you got to be able to test all those scenarios. For example, uh, one of the workflows is, you select a contestant that's up, right? It pushes its data out so you can see it on the screen. And let's say that contestant isn't the one you want up. There's a feature where you can basically split second. If Joe is running and Smith is supposed to be running, which happens often in the rodeo world, you have those, yeah, they're rolling. Somebody's animal won't cooperate, they're going to move on to the next one. Well, the production team usually gets that a little later. Well,
Yeah.
we find out mid-ride, you got to be able to switch that person. Well, normally what happens is you have your person that's competing, and when they compete, a certain series of events happens in that software. Well, I was running through it the other day, and when you do that, we call it an override function, right? To switch out those people mid-run when you need a correction, it wasn't doing that certain series of steps that we needed to do. It actually, and was it wrong? No, but it didn't work as fluidly as we needed it to. And it's like, gosh, like that's just one more scenario of an option that we put in there to make it easier. But every time you add an option, there's also the chance that you're going to find another like problem or bug where it doesn't follow the sequence of events it needs to so that everything happens as it should. So there's been a lot of that right now where it's like, oh, we'd like to add this feature because we think it's going to make it easier. And it's like, well, by adding that one feature, you create, 10 different variations because of what it's linked to. So now you got to test variation 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, all the way to 10 to make sure that there's no issues with it.
Yeah.
And so that's been one of the major challenges too. And that's why I say it's a lot of work for a low paying result, really.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's 3 dozen, 4 dozen companies, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of work. That's like building. I mean, I don't even know. It's like building a iPhone and only having 100 customers. I mean, it's a lot of work for nothing.
Right.
But no, that was great explanation there, and like I'm excited. I kind of hope you get it done because I want to see it when it gets done. I mean, like I said, like I'm gonna find a way to come out and bug you at some point in time when you're out east. I've talked to a few people that's met you guys, the Frost View guys, and like they love you guys, man. They talk about, like you said, customer service. Talk about how nice you guys are, how much fun you are to be around. You know, you're not in the way. You're not a bear. You're actually like functioning as part of the team, and that's one thing in like rodeo, man. You have like a lot of times like you'll have a photographer or a videographer or something, and like sometimes you're just like, you're in the way in like some type of production company, and then I think you guys do a great job not doing that. Like everyone talks about how much fun you guys. I mean, yeah, you're gonna make mistakes. It's an on demand like live streaming service. Like I mean, you're gonna click the wrong
Yep.
camera, you're gonna jump to the wrong thing, you're gonna, like you said, the wrong contestant because they're gonna like roll to somebody else because the bull won't stand or something, and you kind of you're like just standing there like, hey, who's going? And like you're not wearing a headset. You might be wearing a headset, but you're not getting the information relayed as fast as like once again we go back to what size depending on the show is too. Like I mean the PBR and the big time PRCs, there's headsets. There's so much information being relayed. The smaller guys, that information is not getting relayed at all. Like sometimes the announcer don't even know who's doing something.
Exactly. Yeah, and that happens a lot. And I mean, I got a couple different thoughts on that. And one of them is with the software that I'm trying to build is that's what I sell people on all the time is like, yeah, it handles statistics and the graphics and technology side, but it's really communication software because the pieces that I built in are geared towards more like having giving the shoot boss control of who, the name that they're able to send to the production team back in the announcer stand, and then having a better interface for the announcers so that they can see the live feed, they can see more of the stats, and it's clearer. It's not just some like monitor view with some names and stuff and stuff, but they can actually really tell what's going on. And then um, as far as the bigger shows go, it allows the small shows to do what the bigger shows are doing, really.
Yes.
And the importance of that, I think, is that, like you said earlier, we in rodeo it's important to work as a team because there's other outside factors that are you know that we're fighting against. Every rodeo committee that I know, they want to be like the NFR, right? They want to put together a good production. They want to be like the big dance. But my thing is why are we all trying to compete to be the next NFR when we should try when rodeo it should try and compete to be the next NFL, right? That's my thought. And I think if we keep on pushing up the production of these smaller rodeos, and we keep on pushing up the production of just your everyday PRCA or UPRA or amateur rodeo or open rodeo or bull ride, and you start making everything like the PBR or like the NFR or the American, and you make every show that level of quality, then the American, the PBR, and the NFR, you know what they're going to do? They're going to say, we got to be better. We got to be different.
Yeah.
Those rodeo Houstons, those rodeo Austins, those Pendletons, they're going to all look at what they're doing as far as shows go. They're going to have to bump it up. They're going to have to amp it up. And all of a sudden, you're going to see that rodeo is competing with concerts, right? It's competing with NFL. It's competing with the MLB, the NBA. And people are going to be like, oh, well, you know, in my area, we have the Bucks, right? So it's going to be like, well, are you going to the Bucks game or are you going to the PRSA rodeo that's down there? You know,
Yep.
it's like, it becomes we're pushing more people as a whole to the Western entertainment, and then by doing that, we can just really, really do a lot more.
Yeah, man. I think that I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, that's kind of the gist of what needs to happen, and I truly believe I think you guys are going to do it in the industry. Um, as we start wrapping this up, because I do have a laptop that is starting to trickle down towards the dead side, and we're gonna stay in touch all the time. We might have to catch back up this summer or something on the road or something or another. But before you hop off here, why don't you like plug the production company you work for and where they can like find you? And I'm assuming you will talk to anyone who wants to talk. You literally have like I didn't even go like work for you guys, and you guys let me bug all like 2 or 3 of you all left and right. So I mean, you guys are all very approachable. So why don't you plug all that real quick before you hop off?
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Willing to help out anybody that needs the help. Like I got a call or two from good friends the past 2 weekends, and they're like, "Hey, I'm working with this other company. We need help." Immediately, I didn't even say like who you're working for. I'm just like, "Here's what we need to do to get you guys set up." And so you guys can reach out to me anytime. Find me on social. The best thing you can do to get a hold of me is find Rodeo Stat, either on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, any of those. That's how you can get a hold of me personally. And then I work for Frostview Productions, like you've talked about multiple times, and we're all over the country. Um, we're willing to travel pretty much anywhere, and you can find them on Facebook. I think they're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok now. Uh, Head out to our website. I believe it's like frostviewproductions.com, and just get a hold of us. Like we do all sorts of Western sporting events, from bull rides to barrel racing, ropings, horse auctions, anything like that. And we've even been asked to do like funerals and music concerts and festivals and things like that too. So we're not just limited to sporting events either, but we got multiple video boards. We do mobile production, streaming. Basically, if you can think it, we can make it happen. So
Yeah, man, that's perfect. Again, thank you so much for doing this. I'll be in touch. We'll catch up sometime down the road. I don't quite know when this episode is going to release yet. I had one other one, and I'll have to do some editing and cut some stuff up, some promos and stuff for this. But I'll make sure I get you tagged and everything in it whenever we go to put it out, man.
That would be awesome.
yeah, it's super good pleasure to be here. So
Hey, man, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your night up there in Wisconsin, and I'll catch you down the road, man.
Sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right, later, man.
bye.
Well, that was maybe one of the best interviews I've had. Dude, Isaiah is a super, super smart young man. He's going places. He's grasped this world, and he's not sitting back. He's asking questions. He's moving forward, and I mean, he's at 23, running your own production team on a radio. I mean, he makes it seem like it's not that big of a deal, but that's a pretty big deal, man. He's doing a lot, and that company's growing. He's he's trying to pioneer a new software to like help bring it back to life, and kind of build in some advanced technology into it. It's very cool. But as always, guys, make sure you're checking out the sponsors and stuff of the show. We've had a lot of good guests here lately, and we're going to keep having good guests throughout the summer. And I don't quite know where this one's going to come out, but I think it's going to be close to Memorial Day. So make sure you have a great Memorial weekend. Remember everyone, and spend some time with the family and friends, and don't forget what it stands for and what truly you need to be doing, and don't pressure yourself, and don't second guess. Go out, ask questions, be curious. If you're gonna bug people, they're gonna tell you you're gonna bug them. Just continue to kind of pursue what you enjoy doing. I mean, it might be something you're doing now, or it might be starting a second job. But as always, have fun.